Hey, I'm Scott King, and that is John Michelson. Hey, John, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Hey, we talk about the intersection between technology and people. And when you're talking to people, digital leaders, technical leaders, CIOs, and they're explaining their plans, sometimes you say you're going the wrong way or you're going the wrong direction, or
Yes.
you have like this common rhetoric, right, around you're just making it harder, one, on yourself. You think you're making it easier on your people, but you're actually making it harder on your people, and you're making it harder on
Yeah.
yourself, and you're making it harder on your ecosystem. What do you mean? So can you, when you say you're going the wrong way, what are you talking to them about? What are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
trying to make them believe their future is going to be like?
Right. Right. So first, let me start with an analogy. I went to therapy. It didn't work. So I'm just going to stick with analogies. Sorry, guys. You can get a certain speed on a bicycle. Now, I'm not talking the motorized type, right? If I'm cranking as hard as I can get to a certain. Actually, the guy I'm with on this podcast here can lay it down for 100 miles at a high speed. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think
most of us,
my yeah, I think like terminal velocity for me is about 55 miles an hour. That's as fast
I,
as I've
I
ever been.
and I think you're insane for that, right? But be that as it may, there is an upper limit to the speed you can get on a bicycle. There is an upper limit it is obviously much faster on a motorcycle. There is much faster in jet propulsion based vehicles. There's a even faster when we right. So we can only go as fast as essentially the approach and the vehicle, the technology that we use to do it. So if you think about it that way, we started deploying new technologies into companies when speed wasn't the issue. Today, speed is an issue. Every organization I talk to is trying to embrace technology faster than they can actually do it. It's a classic case of if you could right now take everything you've seen in the market and bring it into your organization, how many things do you think that would be? Like, oh my gosh, it's 50, it's 100, it's an unbelievable number, right? And by the way, I'd be switching out a whole bunch of stuff I've currently got that's antiquated or that doesn't right? Every one of us that's listening to this would say the same thing.
Yeah, we get some number of automated emails introducing some new technology every day. Like
There
I
you
get
go.
10, I get 10 or 12.
And let's hope for the sake of us having to read through a lot of that stuff, that at least one and a couple of those is worth our looking at it and potentially worth coming in. Now, how many can you? That number always comes out 1/10, 1/100th, the number of the first. And this was literally a case I had once, a manufacturing conference that I keynoted during COVID. It was 40 technology vendors around me, many of them able to transform the floor of an organization, right? Everything from IoT to ERP. I mean, the whole thing, right? And these organizations are like, we need to bring this stuff in. So I just flat out asked the question of the audience: how many of what you how much of what you've seen today, 40 different technologies have you seen? How many of these are something that you probably could get value from if you partner the organization? And someone yelled out all 40. And then I said, how many can you? Someone else yelled out 4. There's the difference. Now, the difference between that 4 and 40 is because we're going the wrong way. That's it. That is the going the wrong way. Now, so what is that way? Just being very, pragmatist. What am I actually saying? Let's say, Scott, you're running a retail organization and you've got the good old fashioned tribal knowledge and human instinct from Sally to decide what your inventory levels should be on all your products, right? You need a better way. So what do? You go to market, you find a system that if you feed it good data, it'll calculate good information and provide your people with optimized inventory levels. It might even help you with cyclical things and even, all kinds of cool stuff, right? Now, what you're going to do that is you're going to bake off some vendors, you're going to bring something in, you're going to end up with what? 8, 10, 15 system integrations that you're going to have to build between that system and the various systems that need to feed it data and that what you want to feed data from it. And you're going to give not only Sally, but potentially hundreds of other people access to that application, train them, make sure they understand it, tell them they now need to use it in this new way. And instead of doing it the other way, they got to do it that way. Right. And we do this
It's got to
over
be,
and
that number,
over
especially
and
sales
over.
and marketing systems, integrated to inventory. Yeah. Weather. It's the strawberry Pop-Tart example at Walmart.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Over and over and over. That's why you can only do 40, or excuse me, 4, right? You want 40, but how many times are you going to be able to take your entire organization through that kind of churn, right? Not that often. That's why you're going the wrong way, because we've actually been doing it that way. And that's why I say it's the bicycle versus the motorcycle or jet propulsed vehicle analogy, because we're using an approach that is, okay, bring in a whole new stack, UI, middleware, system, zone data, all of this, and then integrate it across, make our people figure it out, change the standard operating procedures, who's actually written them down, but there you go. We try to figure it out anyway. And of course, it's just too much. We want those capabilities. You want optimized inventory levels as a retailer and 100 other new technologies that you need to bring into the organization to make you effective and all of that stuff. But you can't get to 100 this year, my friend. Hopefully someone else can't, because if not, you are in serious business risk. Now, the problem inherently is we need to embrace more and more, but our people don't even want the new version of the software they've already got. So the typical desktop's got 50 apps on it already. Users switch 1,100 or 1,200 times a day. And I have never heard a business leader say, I'm only in 50. Hey, IT, can you get me to 70? That just doesn't happen. Now, those business leaders are certainly asking for more technology and more capabilities. But we've made the mistake of associating that with full stacks and UIs and more change for humans. We want more technology at play. We do not want more UI. That's the simple way to say it.
Yeah, someone will say
going the wrong way.
Yeah, they'll want the better like business outcome. You were talking about inventory. I want low inventory because I have low carrying costs. But to do that, I got to build another app. So your example goes from 50 to 51 apps, right? Plus the long tail of development.
And yes, of all of that, apparently we despite tons of middleware that we've bought in organizations, we still end up, and go check your own organization for this. We end up wiring an app into a dozen other apps on average. So we just have this massive overhead of it's not going to get there. So much so, by the way, there's a whole market of automation technology that wires UIs together. We got so many apps, we now don't want people to even use those apps, and we're trying to get software bots to actually use the apps instead of the people. This is actually proof that we've truly been going the wrong way. And when an organization looks at the number of actual systems of record, the number of and again, these are very common industry numbers. We're not making this stuff up. In U.S. large enterprise, to use really specific numbers, the typical large enterprise has about 1,000 applications that they build or maintain or they've bought. Only approximately 200 of those are actual systems of record, meaning it is the authoritative source of that particular information. The other 800 are just banging around in the environment so that so-and-so can have access to a few pieces of that information, or so-and-so has a button to hit in order to make something happen. We have this massive amount of app inventory, and of course, all the infrastructure training and challenges associated with maintaining all that stuff. But we're actually only pulling actual real value capabilities from about 20% of the systems that are actually deployed. So that all speaks to me the wrong way. Now, of course, that begs the question: what is the right way? And you've heard me speak on this. Have I sufficiently kind of stated the problem, Scott? Should I move on?
Yeah, I did have one question. If from the 1,000 to the 800 and the 200, where did the 800 apps come from? Because the other, like the 201st app didn't do it, so now I had to create another one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
is this is low code like, hey, I can develop my own app now? Like, Am I part of the
Oh,
problem if I'm doing it?
so much. Oh my gosh, you're so much. You're literally doing exactly what we wouldn't want you to do if we were thinking more clearly about it. Look, right? Um, now, look, you asked actually a great question. So why did we build those 800 apps to begin with if they're not actual genuine systems of record? Well, the answer very often is I I need a mobile app for my customer to access my sales orders. I'm not going to stick SAP Mobile on their phone. I'm going to build an app that integrates SAP Mobile along with my customer data management system, along with my marketing informatics system, and blah, 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 blah. So here goes, right? Not a system of record, but certainly, essentially, that's an example of when we have humans needing processes automated that cross systems, and or we cannot provide direct access to those systems to users. There goes the 800 apps. Because what we've not realized is there's a better way to do that than, oh, let's build an app for that, or let's buy an app for that. And that is essentially it. We need automation that crosses all of those systems, right? And those systems don't cross each other. And the vendors are not thinking, okay, I built my inventory management capability. It's probably AI based. It's probably really cool. It's probably got an ugly UI because most of those guys are not worried too much about their UI. And they think, okay, I build my whole complete system. I can't build just an engine. I got nowhere to put it in. So I got to build the whole thing. And now I got to sell you the whole thing. I got to convince you my dashboards are really good, right? And you have now yet another UI to train your people on, and yet another dashboard for you to, frankly, not look at. But the better approach, right? Let's get to that. The better approach is consider all of those capabilities in those 200 apps. And maybe there's capabilities in the other 800, by the way. But don't consider them as direct user interface capabilities. Think of those as capabilities that can be accessed through a fabric that weaves your people and those capabilities together, and deploy to the desktop, to the mobile, to your website, conversational interface to all of that framework of capability. Let's weave those things together. Let's bring in that new capability. I'll make it super practical. Let's say we've already deployed this automation fabric. And by the way, that's a phrase that I'm borrowing from Craig Leclerc at Forrester. And what we do is very much in line with that particular segment of thinking. You've already deployed this, right? All of the folks who would need to get the benefit of this inventory optimization, let's say, has already got this kind of framework deployed, which means they're not directly interfacing with their CRM. They're not directly interfacing with your marketing management system, your supply chain, your anything. They're just actually interacting. Think of it like Slack. Think of it like Teams or like WhatsApp. They're interacting with people and with systems through that interface. And when you bring that new inventory management capability in, you bring that into the framework that exposes those capabilities to people who can weave it together, and it just naturally flows in the conversations they already have. So instead of the current way that it works, where, oh, Sally, go to this other thing, re-input all of that information, let it tell you what you need to put on the PO to the supplier. It's no. Whatever's going on, that information's in the framework. It's already in that fabric. That system will get fed from the end user perspective completely automatically. And the systems will be connected together through that, and people will be connected to it also. So that is where we get to the right approach, because you know what, how many times you could do that in a year? As many as you wanted to, because implementing new software into that system doesn't require the human change management construct that we've been talking about is the inhibitor to getting change faster and faster. So now you're not riding a bicycle. Now you're at least on a motorcycle if you're not jet propulsed. And that's the goal, right? We've got to disassociate bringing new technology into an organization with impacting users' tribal knowledge, systems, standard operating procedures, and training guides, and all of this crazy nonsense. Because if it's not naturally easily integrated into the back end fabric and just naturally interacts with people, we will never get the velocity that we need. And you'll be stuck with 4 times a year when your competitors are doing 40 a year. That's not going to work.
Yeah, that your Sally example of asking her where to go, or she's asking somebody else where to go, because someone else does know the procedure, probably because they've just been longer and they have more repetitions through it, right? And then, training for that is it's always got to be at least 6 months behind, right? So if you deploy something, a new capability, and you want to train users on it, knowledge retention is going to be near zero.
Scott, you're absolutely right. In fact, it's where you get the this sounds great, but I just don't see us being able to get it done. You and I have been in enterprise software for a long time. We've heard it 1,000 times, right? Man, that sounds great, but I just don't see our organization being able to embrace that. It's like, wait a minute, this has a great business case, yeah, but the friction and the number of arrows in my back for doing this, are you kidding me? Right? I mean, it is all around. And by the way, this is not me blaming IT or blaming end users for that matter. We're all just people. And this is just the natural way that we work. In conversation, we embrace change with dramatic fluidity. You and I could be talking Cowboys, Buccaneers, or hopefully we've got a shot at the 49ers. We could flip right over to, hey, by the way, it's benefits enrollment, and we could go right from there into when's the next podcast. There's no context switch overhead. You read online all this like, oh, you got to be careful with your people and context switch overhead. Yes, if you are forcing them to leave their state of mind and follow some completely arbitrary techie thing, absolutely true. But if you embrace a conversational way to weave capabilities together that just naturally flow, do they ever think that way when 2 new messages show up in WhatsApp? When they go from one topic to another, do they think, oh, wait a minute, is this a training event? Do I need it just is not, whoever even thought that way, right? And yet somehow we've constructed this incredibly brittle approach in IT where everything's a full stack, everything's complicated all the way to the user, and they are the system integration. If you've got 50 apps on your desktop, don't fool yourself. Your people are your integration technology. Your people are actually your workflow engine. You are not automating outcomes. Now, if you pull back from that, and here's one of those statements I frequently make when I'm on this soapbox. If you are delivering new technology that is removing more UI than it is putting on, by far, right? Now you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, reducing the number of apps, right? Or removing the technology. So
that's right.
When you were talking about context switching, and this reminded me of like when people call centers or contact centers, mm-hmm. like they just want to talk to a person and not navigate through the menu right. or the chatbot, right? Because like the menu and the chatbot, it doesn't have any context. So you immediately want to go to a person, explain your situation, and then they pick up the context of what you need. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen this before. This is where you need to go. Like we just need to eliminate that, right? Because
yes.
I can call a contact center and I can talk about the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, the weather, what have you, right? And that's picked up, right? It seems natural, but dealing with 800 different apps, that doesn't happen, right? So that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yes, and there's a future where better natural language understanding, a voice-based chat technology like ours could completely satisfy you. But right now, that thing can do 4 things. And it's going to try really hard to be convinced that what you said was one of those 4 things, right? That's the frustration. I always end up saying agent or hitting 0 myself, even though I build the technology that it goes into this kind of stuff, because it's only got the ability to do 4 things. If I could just explain in my own language and you really do understand, and you've got decent automation behind it, of course I'd rather do that because it's faster. It's faster and easier, right? If the website already provided the capability or your mobile app, I'd be doing that instead of calling in. But The limited scope of those things and the poor NLU associated in those things is why we're so frustrated with them, in my view. I think if there was a really rich experience out there, you'd be fine with it. Well, how about this? At least, Scott, you'd give it a try. You'd find it worked, and if it didn't, you'd say agent, right? I mean, and you just right. It's
yeah. I don't remember where I was. Like I was in some store, and the retail associate was logged into the system, right? And I'm trying to find out an answer, and I'm literally like, "Hey, can I just use it for you?" like I just wasn't getting what I needed. And I'm like, "Hey, I bet I can find this." And like literally in a couple of seconds, I'm like, "Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Thank you." And they're like, "I have no idea," but if the technology had that capability, it would be easier. So we've talked about you're going the wrong way.
If you don't mind, I'd love to just make one quick comment on that. When you deliver a point of sale system that you got to train just plain old folks who are going to get a job for a few months and then quit and go back to uni, and you put this ridiculously complicated point of sale system in front of them, when if instead you could just say, "Do we have any tomatoes in stock?" Or "When do we get the next zucchini order?" And it would just tell them. Instead, you've got a menu structure that's ridiculously complex. You've got to remember all of the keyword jargon that the IT guys baked into that instead of it using. That's the problem, right? So you're pretty good at navigating complex apps, but that's because you've been made to do it over years and years. Most people haven't. So again, when we find our way to, well, that's why we wrote the tagline of the company, to make technology that understands people, right? But the goal is not to see how many apps we can get a human to deal with. It's the exact opposite. So anyway, I appreciate it. I know we got to wrap up, but thanks for letting me make that additional comment.
Yeah. So just, we touched on the wrong way is making the human do more. And then the right way is removing complexity. So just some closing thoughts on, if I'm a CTO, CIO, VP, app dev, whoever, I'm actually delivering the capability that the business needs. Like, what are some closing thoughts or some things that I need to think about as I progress?
So I would look for a way, because right now users hold IT hostage with, "Hey, I know that system, don't change it," or "Hey, I know that system, you can't swap it out." I mean, you can not only can you not enhance it, but you're nuts if you think you can like replace that with another one, right? We've got real life stories of the call center waking up one morning and saying, "Oh my gosh, you updated the CRM, put it back," and they put it back, right? It's unbelievable. So I guess I would just leave it with that. If you reach the point where you can deliver technology at a pace that is, from an IT perspective, fast, from a human perspective, that's too fast. You've got to find a way to do that. That's the way to actually summarize what we're talking about here, right? You got to be able to deliver technology change faster than humans can embrace it, which means you got to make technology deal with the technology change, not people. And one way you can really take that call center I just described example, if you could swap out a major system over the weekend and the business people that come back into the office on Monday didn't even know you did it, you've accomplished something unbelievable, right? Something that unbelievably freeing, and something that could provide a tremendous velocity to your business. Because when you've done that, when you've taken the direct connectivity to your technical capabilities away from people and instead provided them with the fabric that weaves those and all the other capabilities together, you now have the ability to swap out X for Y or integrate Y to Z. And those folks don't even know it happened. It's just a richer experience when they show up on Monday. And the messages might change, but you know what? They've never had the same text message twice. Well, I'm sure there's some annoying people who do the same text message twice. But for the most part, most people don't expect to get the same message twice. And yet they don't deal with it as a, "Oh my gosh, I don't understand this," right? So when we embrace the way that people do deal with change, and when we isolate the technology and keep it in IT where it belongs, man, you've got some great. Now you're ready to be Star Trek, because now you've actually got the ability to just continuously deliver newer technology, bring in more and more capabilities at the pace that IT can move, which is much, much faster than the business.
Well, awesome. Thanks, John. See you next time.
Always fun.